In this video, we're talking about the latest PS5 update, and then we're going to talk about how you should check your PSP now because it might explode. And finally, is Xbox saving PlayStation or is it the other way around? How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. It's essentially a video podcast where we go through all the biggest PlayStation news from the week. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and set your notifications to all. Have you been wanting to play one of the most comprehensive vehicle combat games ever? Well, then this video's partner, War Thunder, is exactly what you're looking for. Immerse yourself in the intense combat of War Thunder, where incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects place you right in the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. Over 70 million players have staged epic battles with an arsenal of 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations. You can take control of biplanes and armored cars from the 1920s to the fighter jets and battle tanks of today. War Thunder has some of the most sophisticated vehicle damage modeling in gaming. Every vehicle is intricately modeled down to its individual components, like engines, fuel tanks, weapons, and crew, all susceptible to damage. If your vehicle or an enemy is destroyed, the X-ray view shows precisely where the shell penetrated, the components affected, and ultimately what led to the destruction. It also has a comprehensive customization system with countless camouflages, historical markings, and decorations for all types of vehicles. Drive any tank, fly any aircraft with nothing but your mouse and keyboard or controller, even in simulator mode. And now there's an all-new mobile version available on iOS and Android. Take the battlefield with you wherever you go, with the same familiar massive multiplayer warfare and dynamic ground and sea battles with air support. Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile devices now by using my links in the pinned comment or the video description. For a limited time, new and returning players on PC and consoles that haven't played in the last 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack, including multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account. Once again, huge shout out to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. The first news story we have to talk about today is that there's a new PlayStation 5 update available now. You're going to want to install it because, as always, if you don't install it, you won't be able to connect to the PlayStation Network, which neuters the hell out of your console. So unless you have the feature turned off where it installs this stuff on its own, you're going to want to go ahead and go to your system settings and apply the latest update for your console. It doesn't really bring anything all that new with it. It adds some emojis in and messes with permissions and accessibility options and things like that. It's one of those smaller updates that they're going to be continuing to push out as time goes on, but you're going to want to do it because you want to access the PlayStation Network. The big problem that came along with this update is that it's missing a big feature that a lot of people want back, which is themes. Those were awesome. It was really cool when we got those 30th anniversary themes around the launch of the PS5 Pro. Then in January, Sony announced that they would be going away, but thanks to people really liking them, they said they'd bring them back. And I don't understand why it's taking so long. I was thinking about it from like a licensing perspective, like maybe they have to license some stuff out, but like it's their console. It's the PS1, the PS2, the PS3, and the PS4, all made by Sony. The operating system is made by Sony. Everything involved in these themes, from the images to the sounds that it replaces, is owned by Sony. So I don't understand why we have to wait for this to come back. It might be something that they're waiting for a state of play to announce or something like that, just to, you know, drum up a little bit of good PR, because as we're going to talk about a little bit later in the video, there are some delays going on with PlayStation, but like, just add them back in. I don't understand why they were taken away in the first place to begin with. So why are we having to wait past a brand new PlayStation 5 update to actually get them back? My biggest hope is that they're working on making this an actual feature versus something that you just turn on in the settings. Like if we could get regular themes like we had on every PlayStation console back, that would be great. Or maybe they're going to add them in for some of their big first party games like The Last of Us Part 2. They probably want to have something extra to coincide with the TV show. I know they're updating The Last of Us Part 2 to add some more no return characters, but if they could add in a theme or maybe a TV show theme, that would be cool. Obviously they could build up some hype for games like Ghost of Yotei and Intergalactic by adding themes for those games. Hell, they could go back to games like Death Stranding, add those in, or games like Ghost of Tsushima and add those in. Like there's plenty of options of first party games that they could add back in as regular themes. And if they are taking this long to actually do it, I just gotta hope that that's what they're working on over at Sony, because outside of that, I don't understand why it's taking so long to put these themes back on the PlayStation 5. As far as future updates for the console go, there's really not much to ask for. I think they've done an incredible job adding features that people have been asking for, but also coming up with stuff that people weren't necessarily asking for. Like the Welcome Hub was a really cool addition to the PlayStation 5. There are so many patents being filed right now that I think they're basically full steam ahead on the PlayStation 6. Like a lot of Sony is probably working on that. So I would expect, outside of the themes that we're still waiting for, as time goes on, we're not going to be seeing any big features coming to the PS5 outside of the PS5 Pro getting FSR 4. I know one big thing people are asking for is PSSR to come to the PS5 regular edition, but unfortunately, just because of the way that that console is built, I don't think it can really happen. I don't necessarily think it needs it because we are seeing some good games coming to the PS5 and looking and running amazing. I just think if you're someone who really wants the 60 FPS experience, you're just going to have to buy a PlayStation 5 Pro. That thing is doing a lot better than I think people were expecting performance-wise, mainly because a lot of the news stories that came out when it launched were, you know, just trying to be negative based on the price because the sentiment around the thing was not great. But if you look at how much more powerful it is, I mean, there are plenty of examples of games that look and run much better on the PlayStation 5 Pro than they do on the original. So if you're good with 30 FPS, stick with the PS5. If you want PSSR, you want the eventual upgrade to FSR 4, you want 60 FPS and higher resolutions, the PS5 Pro is sitting right there. And I wouldn't wait for a sale just based on how it shook out with the PS4 Pro. I mean, maybe sometimes they did a $50 price decrease or they did a bundle where it was the same price and you got a game with it, but I just don't foresee that happening based on tariffs and everything else with component prices and all that. I don't think they're going to do many, if any at all, price decreases on the PS5 Pro. I have it. I really like it. I get that it's expensive and money is tight right now, but if you're using your PlayStation 5 all the time, talking yourself out of it is not the right route. Like if you want the upgrade, it's worth saving up for, in my opinion. I default to that console. Like when I want to play a game, if my wife's not using the TV to watch her TV shows, I want to use the PS5 Pro because it really is that much better. But yeah, that brings me to the second news story here. I was scanning through Push Square, my favorite website to get PlayStation news, and I saw that they had a cross post from one of their technology related websites about the PSP. And I got excited because I was like, oh, is Sony actually going to put effort into making PSP games playable on the portal or something so you don't have to stream them? But no, it's actually a pretty scary situation because people in Japan are reporting that their PSPs are exploding. So essentially what happened here is a user who had a PSP, they took it out of their drawer to charge it and they noticed that the battery door kind of popped off while it was on the charger, and then they went and touched it and it actually burned their fingertips and then the battery exploded. Now, if you have a Samsung phone, you are more than familiar with this. If you don't know, I used to work for Austin Evans. I was the lead editor for him for around 5 or 6 years. We had so many Samsung phones coming through that office that they would just end up in a drawer, and then we would look in the drawer and the batteries would be expanded, and then you'd have to dispose of those phones safely because if the battery expands too much, they could just combust. And it looks like the same thing is happening with the PSP. Now, the interesting thing is the user doesn't know if it's an official battery or a third-party one. A lot of people had third-party batteries back in the day because the easiest way to hack a PSP to install games that you downloaded online was to open up the battery. You'd use an X-Acto knife to cut around the plastic seal. You take the plastic door off the battery, and then there was a motherboard on the battery where you would flip a little switch on it, like disconnect it from the motherboard, and for some reason that would allow you to install custom firmware. My buddy and I bought a 3-pack of batteries back in high school, and it took us a couple of tries, but we were able to do it, and that was awesome. I remember when I had mono, I was going crazy because I was so bored and I got sick of watching daytime TV, so I took my hacked PSP and downloaded a bunch of games to it, and it was awesome. So if you have a third-party battery in your PSP, especially one that you cut open, I would go and run and check it right now because you do not want these things exploding and catching on fire. Battery explosion fires are nothing to mess with, and I have seen plenty of stories where a lot more than just the PSP's battery burned. Like you could easily end up with an Austin Evans type situation where you get to make a YouTube video called "It's All Gone" and you got a great thumbnail of an apartment building burning down. I mean, God forbid that happens, but there is an upside to it. That video totally blew up and he talks about it all the time. Blew up, not the worst choice of words for that. I'm just going to move on to the third news story here, which is Xbox saving PlayStation or is it the other way around? So I was scrolling through X last night after I watched 1883, which, like, man, side note, that show, unreal. That is one of the best shows I've ever seen. I started it 3 days ago. I'm already on episode 7 of 10. Not even one of the best Western TV shows, just one of the best Westerns of all time. But I was scrolling through X and I saw a lot of tweets popping up about how on the PlayStation Store, Xbox games are ranking a lot higher than upcoming PlayStation 5 games like Death Stranding. So we've got Indiana Jones and we've got Forza Horizon 5 coming out very soon. And in pretty much every territory, including Japan, if they're not in the top 10, they're in the top 2 spots, which is actually kind of crazy. Now, ranking those games higher than Death Stranding 2, that makes sense because both of those games come out before Death Stranding 2 and they both have early access options. So if you want to pre-order the premium editions of either game, Forza Horizon 5 or Indiana Jones, you're going to get that early access. So that's probably pushing them up the list. I'm not familiar with how the list works, like if it's by number of pre-orders or money earned. If it's by money earned, that makes sense because the expensive versions would increase the amount of revenue they've earned from pre-orders and push them up the list. And a lot of people are kind of spinning this as Xbox is saving PlayStation, but it's really not. Like, I'm not even trying to be a fanboy, but Xbox is just a third-party publisher like anyone else. And these are highly rated games. Indiana Jones did pretty well last year on PC and Xbox in terms of review scores. It's obviously a good game that's in the style of Uncharted, and people are clearly hungry for more Uncharted, but Naughty Dog is a completely different studio now, so it doesn't look like we're going to see the return of Uncharted anytime soon. That makes sense to pick that game up on PlayStation. Forza Horizon 5 is one of the highest rated racing games of all time and one of the best, and it fills a niche on PlayStation that's kind of underserved. Every time someone says PlayStation's hungry for open world racing games, I'm like, the Crew Motorfest is right there. That is a really good game. I know Ubisoft is kind of tarnished for a lot of people, but it's the least Ubisoft game ever. It looks incredible. It runs incredible. It doesn't have a ton of microtransactions that you have to interact with. It adds stuff all the time. Like with the new update they just added, they redid the graphics and the lighting for the entire map and added more things to do on the new Maui map. I think it's a great game, but people just ignore that it exists. So from that perspective, there really aren't a lot of open world arcade racing games on the console. So I think Forza Horizon 5 is absolutely going to clean up. It's also worth noting that games like Days Gone Remastered are very high on the pre-order list, which is cool because, you know, Sony is convinced that that game wasn't popular enough to get a sequel, but every time it gets talked about, of course, it just rises and rises up the list. Death Stranding is pretty high, but I don't think that's ever going to be a top 2 or 3 game just because the first Death Stranding is awesome. I really like it. I'm playing through it again right now just before the second one comes out. The core gameplay loop is not the most accessible to what people are looking for on a console. Like if you put 3 games in front of the average person, Indiana Jones, Forza Horizon 5, and Death Stranding, Indiana Jones is a first-person shooter style adventure that's very casual. It's not like a hardcore sim or anything like that. Forza Horizon 5 is an open world arcade racing game with like a ton of different cars and things to do in it. It's got all of its content out and a lot of people really like it. So, you know, people are probably going to pick that up. And then Death Stranding is a walking sim with a completely esoteric story that doesn't honestly make sense even after you beat it. And while it does have combat, it's extremely limited and it is by no means the focus of the game. Like even if you go out of your way to look for mules to fight in that game, the core gameplay loop is walking or driving. Like you're just building roads to walk on or drive on. You're building zip lines to walk on. And it's like, it's not the most accessible game in the world. So kind of comparing that to like Indiana Jones, which is a globally known IP outside of gaming, and Forza Horizon 5, which is one of the highest rated games of all time. I just like, I love PlayStation. I love Death Stranding. I love Hideo Kojima. It's not a new Metal Gear, right? Like his name goes far, but like, I feel like his name going far is what put it on the top 10 in the first place. You know, like I don't think it's Xbox kind of coming in and saving the day for Sony. I think their games are doing just fine. And when you look at it from the perspective that Xbox is just another third-party publisher, Sony gets 30% of the revenue from all those sales. So like, yeah, it's PlayStation kind of saving Xbox because those games did not sell sell well at all on the Xbox ecosystem. They sold well on Steam and maybe the PC Xbox app and got people to play on Game Pass. But like, if Xbox had something to say about game sales, they would talk about game sales instead of constantly coming out saying, oh, we have this many million players on our game. They only say that because they're working in Game Pass users, and Game Pass subscriptions are totally flatlined. That's why their games are on PlayStation in the first place. They're not bringing in nearly enough revenue to continue supporting these games exclusively on Xbox. The real news story here is third-party games are selling well on PlayStation, which they do all the time because that's why PlayStation is on top and Xbox is having to get out of hardware, crapping on the platform that has done well and is continuing to do well and is doing better than it ever has. Not necessarily the move I would pull. I just like, I don't know. That's just me. But yeah, PlayStation is going to have to address the fact that they're leaning heavily on third-party games. I talked about this when Alex Garland and Neil Druckmann did their podcast talking about Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. You know, it's been 7 years since The Last of Us Part 2, and I personally couldn't care less that they spend a lot of that time working on The Last of Us Online. Like, you'd think the strategy would be come up with a game you can turn around quickly, but doesn't look like that's the case because according to Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, they're targeting 2027. So like, once again, Naughty Dog is closing out a generation with the game. I think it's cool. I think they should take as long as they need to make the game, but like, man, what are we doing here, guys? Like, we don't need every game to be the Red Dead Redemption of its generation. You can make smaller games and release games quicker. I grew up during the PS3 generation, and in that generation, I got Uncharted, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, and The Last of Us. All of those came out within the PS3 generation, which to be fair was a little bit longer. Then you move on to the PS4 generation and it still looks pretty good. You get The Last of Us Remastered, Uncharted 4, and The Last of Us Part 2. Then you move on to this generation and you get nothing. I'm not counting The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 Remastered because they're just repackaging the patches that those games got to run at 60 on the PS5. They need to figure out something there. Like, look at even Santa Monica Studios. We got God of War Ragnarok this generation and they're allegedly releasing a smaller game set in Greece. Hello? That's what you should be doing at Naughty Dog. Give us a Firefly side project. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on. Huge shout out once again to War Thunder for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check out War Thunder for free now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or on mobile. Those who are new or who haven't played for 6 months will receive a massive bonus pack across PC and console, including multiple premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. Link in the pinned comment and the description to register.